Where is George?
It was a cloudy day. Peppa Pig's family went to look at the mountains. It was a good viewpoint with a view of nature. They had already had a good time and were about to leave, but Daddy Pig found George missing. They started calling for him, but he didn't respond. Soon the police began a search. They searched the entire mountain, but George seemed to have disappeared without a trace. They then began to search deeper into the woods. And after a while, George woke up. It was a dark, damp place. His whole body ached. Having fallen from such a height, he had only broken his arm. He scratched himself on the walls of the sewer as he fell, and he cried out in fear and pain. But no one heard him. For that moment, they were looking for him down the mountain. It began to rain. Mrs. Rabbit went back to the top of the mountain to continue her work and wait there for George. She hoped he would be able to find his way back, but he was right beside her, and his cries were now drowned out by the sound of the rain. The rain continued to pour, and George, sitting in the hole, gradually became soaked. The water was rising, and George could feel the cold creeping into his bones. He was up to his waist in the cold water, and breathing became increasingly difficult as there was little oxygen in the air around him. Time stretched slowly, and each moment seemed like an eternity. Finally, the rain stopped, and it was already evening. Miss Rabbit was about to leave work, but she heard a baby crying. She was shocked. She immediately called George's family to inform them that he had been found and called the rescue team. George was given a blanket and some food so he could wait for the rescuers. He wasn't so scared anymore because he knew he would be taken care of. And as it started to get dark, Mr. Bull arrived. He arrived with a construction crane that would bring down a special place where George could lie down. The work to rescue George has begun. The crane kept going down and down. It stopped as the chain ended. George's rescue crate hovered in the air a meter above him. Mr. Bull assessed the situation. To dig George out would require digging a great deal of soil from the top of the mountain. At the same time, after a rainstorm, the walls of the drain could collapse on George. The nearest place to extend the chain was an hour away, but action was urgent. He got a rope and used it to lengthen the chain. The situation became critical. Everyone was in shock and didn't know what to do. Was George alive? And how do we get to him now? Mr. Bull went to lengthen the chain, and Peppa's family stayed behind to monitor George's condition. A couple of hours later, Mr. Bull returned and pulled the crane down for George. This time it worked. An ambulance was already on the spot to pick him up. But the police arrested Mr. Bull because he had built this drain here. The sewer was dug in a place where it is absolutely unnecessary. The water from the rain drains down the mountain by itself. Also, it was not made according to standards. These mistakes led to George nearly losing his life.